Om Ajnanatamidandasya Janajnashtakaya Yatnurudina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Saram Durvakadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vidantam Sajivam Sarvaitam Sarvadutam Parishana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Sakamritam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagapate Gopisha Gopikatmanta Radha Namostate Bhakta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vrishabhanu Sudevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasudeva Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We're reading from the chapter 6. Let's see, I'm not sure if we did 42. It's either 42 or 43. Or if unsuccessful after long practice of yoga, he takes his birth in a family of transcendentalists. Did we do that verse?
Yes, please.
You sure? Because I know the one before is similar. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the highest living entities, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. Did we do both of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so 43. So page 355 of my book. Tatra tamburi samyogam. So try to do it at the same time. Tatra tamburi samyogam. Labate purva dehikam. Yatate cha tato bhuya. Samsiddho kuru nandana. Tatra tamburi samyogam. Labate purva dehikam. Yatate cha tato bhuya. Samsiddho kuru nandana. Tatra tamburi samyogam. Labate purva dehikam. Yatate cha tato bhuya. Samsiddho kuru nandana.
Tatratam buddhi samyogam.
Tatratam buddhi samyogam.
Labate purva dehikam.
Labate purva dehikam.
Yatate cha tato bhuyam.
Yatate cha tato bhuya.
Samsiddhu kuru nandana.
Samsiddho kuru nandana. Anybody else?
Tatratam buddhi samyogam.
Tatratam buddhi samyogam.
Labte purvadehikam.
Labate purva dehikam.
Yatate cha tato bhuya.
Yatate cha tato bhuya.
Samsiddhau kuru nandana.
Samsiddho kuru nandana.
Tatratam buddhi samyogam.
Tatratam buddhi samyogam.
Labate purva dehikam.
Labate purva dehikam.
यतते च ततो भूय
Yadate Jatato Bhuya
संसिद्धौ कुरु नन्दन
Samsiddhau Guru Nandana Tatra Thereupon Tam That Buddhi Samyogam Revival of consciousness Labate Gains Purva Dehikam from the previous body Yatate he endeavors Cha also Tata thereafter Bhuyaha again Samsiddho for perfection Kuru Nandana O son of Kuru. Translation. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Purport. King Bharat, who took his third birth in the family of a good Brahmana, is an example of a good birth for the revival of previous transcendental consciousness. King Bharat was the emperor of the world, and since his time, his planet has been known among the demigods as Bharatvarsha. Formerly it was known as Ilavrata Varsha. The emperor at an early age retired for spiritual perfection but failed to achieve success. In his next life he took birth in the family of a good Brahmana and was known as Jad Bharat because he always remained secluded and did not talk to anyone. And later on he was discovered as the greatest transcendentalist by King Rahugana. From his life, it is understood that transcendental endeavors or the practice of yoga never go in vain. By the grace of the Lord, the transcendentalist gets repeated opportunities to complete perfection in Krishna consciousness. For complete perfection in Krishna consciousness. Translation again. On taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life, and he again tries to make further progress in order to achieve complete success, O son of Kuru. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivasesa Sunyavadi Pastrachade Satarane. So here it's talking about a transcendentalist who doesn't complete the process of spiritual realization. He starts out and for different reasons he doesn't complete. So what happens to him? The last two verses explains that he can take birth in a Brahmin family, he can take birth in a rich aristocratic family, and I explained, I guess last week, in a rich aristocratic family, people might think, what's the use of that if you want to do spiritual life? Because you meet people in rich families and they don't seem to necessarily be very spiritual. But the point is they have an opportunity to be spiritual. They don't have to worry about eating, making money till they can eat and sleep. And so people have to work really hard. You can't really talk to them, or they can't take the time for spiritual life. So if you're very rich, you can actually think about what the purpose of life is. You have a great opportunity. You can use it. You don't have to use it. You can use it for sense gratification, or you can use it for making spiritual progress. So you can take birth in such a family in which you'll have a good opportunity to begin again where you left off. So here, on taking such a birth, he revives the divine consciousness of his previous life. It also says that one is naturally attracted to the yogic principles. So in other words, people born in India, they usually grow up with some degree of Krishna consciousness, just in the whole atmosphere. But for Westerners who may have been yogis in previous lives, they would also be attracted to yogic principles. So what are yogic principles? Such as being vegetarian is a yogic principle. Meditating or contemplating or thinking about the purpose of life. Who am I? Why am I here? What is the purpose of life? Possibly be more attracted to renunciation. There's different yogic things that yogis normally do. They're attracted to that. Naturally attracted. And even why are we naturally attracted? We're talking about how we're naturally attracted to these things if you were a devotee in a past life. If you weren't a devotee in a past life, still your consciousness goes with you. And whatever you were attracted to in your previous life, that's going to be what you're going to be attracted to again in your next life. So even materially, when you leave this gross material body, we have to leave. But the subtle body, the mind, goes with us to our next body. And we can just think of all the different things from our past. We may not remember consciously thinking of them, but we're naturally attracted to those things also. So what to say just for the transcendentalists, even the mundane person who dies is also attracted to certain things, and in his next life, those things will be manifest. But as far as spiritual life, there's a difference. Materially, I might be attracted to certain things, and I might still be attracted to those things in my next life. But whatever progress I made materially is finished at the end of this life. But whatever progress I make spiritually, that stays with me eternally. So there's no loss or diminution. And in a little endeavor on this path will protect one from falling down into his next life, taking birth in the animal kingdom. Every living entity is a spirit soul. We have different bodies according to our desires, according to our consciousness. So we have this body as a human body. We're very, very fortunate because in the human body, we can go back home, back to Godhead. Or at least make some progress and then guaranteed to get at least a human birth in our next life so we can continue. So this story of King Bharat Maharaj, he was the emperor of the world. He had a beautiful wife, children, he had everything. It's not like it was an emperor of the world and there was a depression. No, because he was a devotee, all the good things were naturally there. And then he gave it all up to show, not to show, but for us to see that he was so renounced. He gave it all up to try to meditate on God. He went to the forest and just meditated. Now, it's not recommended in Kali Yuga, the age we're living in now, to go to the forest and do this, but in different ages, this was prescribed. So he did this. He gave up his wife, he gave up his children, he gave up his kingdom, he gave up all his opulences, he gave up everything. He went simply as a mendicant to the forest and lived off of berries and fruit and roots, and even wear tree bark. I remember thinking about how the heck do you wear tree bark, but there's a bark that's soft, some kind of tree, not like you get a piece of tree bark. How the heck do you wear this? It's like wearing a tree. But they would live off of these things and live simply. He said, what need is there of a pillow when you have your arms? Just sleep on the floor in their arms. It was very austere. And he did this. And he did really well, except when a lion came chasing a deer, and the deer was pregnant, and then the deer crossed the river, and when it jumped across the river or stream, it gave birth, and then there was a baby deer on one side and the deer ran on the other side. The lion somehow didn't notice the baby deer, but Bharat Maharaj noticed, and this deer was going to die unless he helped it. so he helped the baby deer to live. I don't know exactly how you would help a baby deer just born and if you don't have any milk, but somehow or other he managed to save this deer's life. But the deer only knew him. The deer, like, you know, from just being born, only knew Bart Maharaj as its mother or father, whatever. So the deer was very affectionate towards Bart, and Bart was very affectionate towards the deer. And what happened in his meditations, this was actually Maya. Maya is illusion, or that which is not, takes away from Krishna. Is either anything separate from Krishna is Maya, or illusion. So he started meditating, and then he's looking around for the deer, thinking about the deer. He gave up a whole kingdom, he gave up everything, and he's still attached to a deer. So he became very attached to this deer, and one day the deer was gone, and he couldn't find the deer, and he went looking for the deer, and he wound up falling off a cliff and dying. And he was thinking of the deer at the time of death, so in his next life he took birth as a deer. But in that birth as a deer, he could remember his previous life as the emperor. He could remember his previous life of giving up his kingdom. He could remember his previous life of getting attached to a deer. And now he had the body of a deer. And he realized what he did wrong. It's a little late now, so what is he going to do? There was always sages in the forest in those days. And he would go where the sages were, and he would listen to them, because they would all talk Krishna Katha, topics about Krishna, philosophy about Krishna, and they would discuss these things. And then when they ate, if they left something, as a deer, he would eat their remnants. So after hearing and associating with the great devotees, in his next life he took birth in a Brahmin family. But he did not want to get caught up again in material life. So all he did was remember Krishna. And everything he did externally, he would purposely do it wrong. When his parents are trying to teach him things, he would do them wrong. So then they just think he's just useless, and they don't bother trying to think of we have to get him a wife, we got to get him this, we got to get him that. They just left him alone, and he just somehow survived. But he was fully conscious the whole time of everything, and he could have done anything, but he didn't, because he didn't want to get caught up again. But at the end here, King Rahugana, he was very strong. In this life, he was known as Jug Bart, and he was very strong, and he was pretty, people thought he was like dumb. So they needed someone to carry the king, King Rahugana, in a palanquin, and they need 4 people, and they had 3, so they found him. They gave him the job. He did it. He didn't care. He just did whatever. Didn't make a difference to him. But he didn't do it very well, because there were ants, and he didn't want to step on the ants. So he was moving here and there, and the king's ride was not very comfortable. So the king got upset, stopped the palanquin, got out, and was chastising Jud Bart. And then for the first time in Jud Bart's whole life, we skipped a lot of part of his life with things that happened. He preached to the king, and he got the king to realize that Jud Bart was a great saintly person. The king got out, offered his obeisances, fell on the ground, offered his obeisances to Jud Bart, and then he was known, as a great transcendentalist. But before that, they even put him out as like a scarecrow to scare the birds away, because he couldn't do anything else. Some dacoits who worship God as Kali captured him to offer him as a human sacrifice, because they had to offer somebody useless. So they couldn't find anybody as useless as this guy. So they're going to offer him. He didn't care. He's going to be killed. He's just thinking of Krishna. That's it. I'm not making a mistake again. I'm not going to deviate. That's how serious he was. So he's thinking of Krishna, and they're going to kill him. offer them to Goddess Kali. There's the murti or statue of Goddess Kali, and then the statue breaks open, and Goddess Kali personally comes out with a whole bunch of her associates, which are witches, and then they killed all the dacoits, drank their blood, cut off their heads. Had a good old time. But so Jud Bharat went through a lot of things, but he never forgot Krishna. And then at the end, he finally preached to King Rahugana. And the point is that one will not lose any Krishna consciousness one obtains, and will get a good opportunity in his next life if he doesn't complete the process of continuing, being born in a good family where he can continue his Krishna consciousness. So does anyone have any questions? Comments? Hello? I can read another verse. What?
Can you explain a little bit about the transmigration of the soul? For those that don't know?
Transmigration of the soul. That's actually good. Prabhupada doesn't say reincarnation, because generally reincarnation means you take birth again as a human. Transmigration of the soul is you can take birth in any species. There's 8,400,000 different species, and everyone is a spirit soul inside of a different type of body, and we get a different body according to our consciousness at the time of death. If we act like an animal in this life, and in the next life we get a body of an animal. If we like to sleep 10, 15 hours a night, then we could take birth as a bear and sleep for 6 months out of the year. Boy, that would be fun. Or if we're very much attached to eating meat, then we could take birth as a tiger or a lion. You don't have to prepare anything. Just eat it fresh. So depending upon one's consciousness, one will get a body to fulfill that. It's not just what you want, but it's also how you act and your karma. Your karma, though, is based on your desire. And the desire is there when you desire something, because I desire so many things. But what am I doing about it? In other words, I desire something, but my desires and my actions have to be in accord. Like I want to be rich, but I don't do anything to be rich, so I don't really want to be rich. If I really want to be rich, I'd be working at it, trying to become rich. I'd like to win the lottery, but I don't play. So if I really wanted to win the lottery, I would have to play. I'm not telling, we don't gamble, so that's, but whatever you want, you have to show you want it by your actions, just like Krishna consciousness. If you want Krishna consciousness, you have to show Krishna. God, man proposes, God disposes. Whatever you want, you have to let him know you want it by your actions, not just by your words. I really want this, and you don't do anything about it. That's called the mode of ignorance. Ignorance is laziness, sleep, and dreaming. I dream of, I love to do this and I love to do that, but I do absolutely nothing to obtain it. I don't really want it. I have to show God by my actions that I want something, material or spiritual. If I want to show God that I really do want to be Krishna conscious, I have to act in such a way that I am making an effort to be Krishna conscious. I'm showing him that I do want this. So, desire is very important, and that determines what type of body you'll get, but your karma also, how you act. I would like to be this, but then I act very bad, and if I'm very sinful, I have to suffer in my next life. I mean, it's horrible to see anyone suffering, or you see, this is a problem. There was, I think it was a rabbi who something happened with I think his son died, and he wrote a book that God is either not all powerful or not all good or something. I don't remember the whole thing, but basically he had doubts. No, God is absolutely perfect. Everyone is getting their karma. We might see something horrible happen either to us or to someone else. We're not callous like, oh, well, it's just this karma. But at least philosophically, we can understand this person had done something in the past. We still would like to help. We want to help it. Like just like when I was in one time in Vrindavan, India, there was a motorcycle accident and the person was cut really bad, was bleeding very, very, a lot of blood. And I was thinking, I wish I knew what I could do to help. I wasn't trained in first aid. There was a lot of people there, it wasn't just me, but I wanted to help, but I couldn't. And then someone else, which is not the attitude we should have, was walking by and said, well, that's his karma. Now, number one, it is his karma, but who cares? You still have compassion, you still want to try to help the person. You can look at it philosophically later on, but at least for now, let me try to help. That's where we should be thinking. But it is, we can't say that that's wrong. It is his karma. Nothing happened, especially in Vrindavan. Vrindavan, you commit some offense, immediately you get some reaction. Or you think something really good in Vrindavan and immediately something really nice happens. Vrindavan is a very special place. But anywhere, you're getting your karma, whatever it is. So we have to see, it's like, why is God so mean? Why does he get this? But it's people's karma. And he puts people sometimes all with the same karma in a certain spot and something happens to them all. But because we're very, very much attached to this one life, it seems like such a terrible thing. But there are millions of lives we've had. Just one of them we're going through. Srila Prabhupada has said that we've given so many lives to Maya. Just give one life to Krishna and go back home, back to God. I don't remember what the question was.
I just asked you to talk a little bit about the transmigration.
Oh, transmigration,
So,
right.
which you
Well, I
did.
did. I talked about transmigration.
And also, it explains, I think, why. Like there was a question I was reading in the one article saying why did bad things happen to children, newborn babies? Because
Right.
at least with adults, you can say they did
Right.
something wrong in this
Right.
life and they
Right.
did. But that proves that there was
Right.
previous lifetimes.
Right.
Because the newborn baby is born blind or
Right.
cannot hear. That
Right.
baby did nothing in this present life.
right.
It's
So
something they
it's a past
carried on
life.
from a previous existence. So it's
It was-
proof that
I mean, you think about some people now that are so bad. You want to kill them, you want to do something, and then what happens when they die? They were so bad, they have to suffer in the next life. And even the parents of such a person did something bad to have a child. So we have to accept, nobody wants this on anyone. We don't want this to happen to anyone, but it does happen, and it's our karma. So it's a horrible place. Abrahma bhuvanaloka punavartinojana mamopetatukampiya punajanmana vidyate. From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all the places of misery, when repeated birth and death take place. It's not a nice place. The material world is not a nice place. You want to try to make the best use of a bad bargain. You're here, so you got to do what you can. But the material world is not a nice place. Yeah.
What is the difference between reincarnation and rebirth?
And rebirth,
Yeah.
I think it's the same. The difference, what she said, was reincarnation and transmigration.
Okay, then I have another question. Like, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he incarnates, he doesn't take rebirth. But the conditioned soul takes rebirth. Then what is the, again, difference? Like, when Lord reincarnates,
The Lord comes in his original transcendental body. He doesn't get a material body.
right,
That's a big difference. His body is eternal. he has a spiritual body, and he comes in his original
That is
transformation.
also called reincarnation.
That's not reincarnation. No.
That is called incarnation,
Yeah.
not re.
Oh, re.
A little in English. A little re means a big difference.
So, do animals have consciousness?
Of course. You ever deal with an animal at all?
No.
No? No cat, dog, cow, nothing?
Cows, yes.
Well, do they have consciousness? They're conscious. Of course they're conscious. You pinch them. Stick a little pin in them or something. They respond.
I mean, Krishna consciousness.
Oh. No, they're all different kind of consciousness. There's cow consciousness. There's dog consciousness. There's Krishna consciousness. Out of all the consciousnesses there are, Krishna consciousness is the highest. But there are all kinds of consciousness, and people sometimes have dog consciousness. Even though they're in a human body, they're called two-legged animals. They have, depends, we can have any kind of consciousness in the human body. The cow only has cow consciousness. The exception is Judd Bart, who had deer consciousness, but he had really human consciousness, Krishna consciousness, even as a deer. But that is the exception. That's not the normal thing. Normally a deer thinks he's a deer.
Gajendra also had a consciousness.
Yes, yes. The king of the elephants. So maybe the kings of the different animals have a different consciousness. Gajendra was the king of the elephants. And I don't know, he did seem to have regular elephant consciousness until he was attacked by a crocodile. And then he started thinking a little bit more. And there was a big fight going on for a long time. Long time, this fight between Gajendra and the crocodile. But then he thought there must be more to life than this. Anyway, he picked up a flower and offered it to Krishna. So yeah, there are some. Even with Lord Chaitanya, that was only 500 years ago, he got the animals to chant. You know, the tigers and the deers chanting together. You know, God can do that. We can't do that. Well, we can try to get humans to chant. Normally, just like in this lifetime, you don't remember previous lives. Sometimes you can remember. So maybe there's some exceptions even in animals where sometimes they can remember something from some previous life. They're eternal. Prabhupada does say that everything that has happened to you, it's there in the mind. And it says that just like you can't think of something that you haven't had experience of. You can think of so many things. I didn't experience this, but I can think of it. That's because in previous lives you did experience it. Any other questions? Yes.
So you said you get your next birth of whatever you were thinking of at the time of your death, you know. But what if you like die in your sleep or something?
I don't think I don't know if you're still conscious. You're still conscious. Even it says when you're in a coma. It says sometimes when someone is going to die, they first go in a coma before they die, and it said that at that time the demigods are deciding what type of body. It's not just a simple thing, oh, this guy's going to get this body. So there's some discussion. So while they're discussing it, we'll just put him in this coma state, and we'll discuss this stuff, and then we'll decide.
Some people come out of coma also.
Right. So they say, let's give him a break, see what he does. We're not sure, we can't decide. Give him a few more hours, and that may let us know what he should do with his next life, or days, or years. Yes, people do come out of comas. But sometimes that's why they're in the coma. I don't think every single time that's why they're in a coma. But very well could be.
But even when they're in a coma, you're saying there's still the thought process is going on.
You're conscious. They're not externally. When you're dreaming, you're conscious. You have a body, even in your dream. You may not even have the same body, but you have a body. You're a person, even in your dreams. So it depends on what you're dreaming. I mean, you kind of think you'd wake up if you're going to die, you know. Why you die? A heart attack. You know, you have a heart attack, you know, it's, let me roll over. I really like my sleep. You'd think you'd wake up, or if you can't breathe, usually you wake up.
Right.
You know, take a breath, you wake up, and then you die.
Some people die with so much of pain because of their diseases and all that stuff. So at that time when they are dying, they can't think of anything other than that issue, the body, like if they are so.
Most of us would be in that state, yes, but you can't. Because if we look at Srila Prabhupada, he was completely Krishna conscious, even at death. And he suffered so much. He weighed like 60 pounds at the end, you know, but he was totally transcendental. He never took any type of painkillers, just tolerated it. His consciousness was somewhere else, so he didn't relate to the body so much, he related to the soul. So it's possible to do that. That's rare. Most of us would be like King Kulashekar, I think it was, who said, now that I'm in good health, basically, I don't know the exact prayers, but let the swan of my mind come to this lotus stems of your lotus feet. Basically, let me die now, because I'm not suffering. Because at the time of death, when my voice is choked up and I can't breathe, I may not be able to think of you. So now I'm thinking of you. Please let me die now. You know. So I mean, we're not praying for that. Of course, I think I asked this question once a long time ago. How many people, if you knew you can go die now and go back to Godhead? Definitely go back to Godhead if you die now. If you live longer, you may not. You know, what would you do? Because now you got your family, you got so many attachments. What would you do? What do you think? What?
Go back to God.
You died. Bye. Problem is we don't know, so let's just take as much time as we can and try to become Krishna conscious.
But isn't it also important that people around you should be chanting so that at least you hear, even
Yes,
if you can't?
yes, that's
chant,
nice.
yeah.
So if you associate with devotees, hopefully you'll have devotees around you at the time of death. That's a very important point, because even though you can't do anything, devotees are chanting, you can hear the chanting.
And even if the devotees are not chanting, they say like they should keep something that you're hearing 24/7 at the time.
There's some tapes going.
But people who die of that pain, thinking about that body, they just get the human body again because they're thinking of that body again.
I don't know what they get. I don't have to deal with that. They get another body. Depends on what they did in this life and their consciousness. You know, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what they did. But sometimes when you suffer a lot, you're burning off your karma, because you get so much bad karma. So now you're suffering a lot. You're burning it off, so that way you might be able to go back home, back to Godhead. You know, so but it's, you know, anyway, that's one. It may not seem like a nice thing, but when you do suffer a lot before dying, you're really burning off a lot of sinful reactions. So that's always nice.
So there's a conversation going about euthanasia. People think that with young people who are terminally ill, they say right to die. Like I should decide if I want to die. Few people with doctor-assisted suicide.
Right.
But then again, a lot of religious people are saying, they of course, if you only think there is this one life to live, that might be a good solution.
Right.
But since we believe in future past life,
Right, if you're supposed to suffer, you know, you're gonna have to suffer.
again, you take a birth
Right,
again, and your
it-
situation will be the same or
Right.
even worse.
Right, if you committed suicide, it would be worse.
Yeah, so it's better to
Yeah.
face it and just do whatever you have
Yeah,
to do.
just suffer, take
Get
it,
through it.
and get it over with. Just accept this suffering and try to serve Krishna. I mean, we're all in that situation, to different degrees. So we gotta accept whatever suffering we're going through and just try to serve Krishna. That's it.
And also, Krishna, we don't want to seem like we're morbid and just thinking of death all the time. It's very joyous,
To die.
not to die, to eat prasad, to have, devotee association, to chant, it's a happy thing,
Yeah, we generally we're not focused on that, but, it's a fact, it's gonna happen. It's
No,
not like,
when you
but
live-
not talking about it doesn't change it that it's gonna happen. So it's gonna happen, what do we do about it? So there's no material solution to death, but there is a spiritual solution. So we try to do that. And what is that? It's just like you said, we chant, we dance, we have nice philosophy, we eat nice food, and and that's all around becoming Krishna conscious. It's not that because you're gonna die and you have to suffer. No, you could be happy in Krishna consciousness. You should have a very happy, fulfilled life. You shouldn't think that by Krishna consciousness I'm giving something up. I am giving something up, but I'm giving something up that's not good for me and doesn't make me happy. And then I could become happy and have everything I want and everything I need by just becoming Krishna conscious. There's not a material solution. Some people think that first I have to get my material life together, and then I'll deal with my spiritual life. No, if your spiritual life is together, wherever there's spiritual well-being, automatically material well-being will follow. You don't have to do anything for your material well-being. It will come. You have to have faith. I'm just going to do the right thing. I'm going to do whatever Krishna wants. And he'll take care of you. He takes care of the elephant, 200 pounds of food a day or whatever they eat. Takes care of the ant. He takes care of every living entity. So if you give your life to him, he's going to take care of you. It just takes some faith. So what do you got to lose? Try it. I actually tried this once before I became a devotee, to depend on God. I wanted to, because anyway, long story, but I hitchhiked for like about a year all around the country. And then, but I always had some money with me. But then I thought, well, I'm not really depending on God because I have money. So I went one time without any money, and I didn't know where I was going. I was in New York. I went to the Holland Tunnel. So the hitchhiking people going to New Jersey, start out there, and they got a lift from some people. They're going to Washington D.C. to try to close down Washington D.C. It was a Volkswagen with a bunch of hippies in the car, and this was a long time ago. It was called May Day. We decided against the Vietnam War we're going to do this. So I said, well, it sounds like a good cause. So I went with them. Anyway, I stayed and I went and didn't know anything about Krishna, but I did know about God. And I just was depending on God. And I thought, even if I don't eat for a week, so what? I could, I could drink water and I could still live. I don't have to eat. But then I went up in Washington, D.C. I saw these trees with berries. And I thought, well, they can't be poisonous berries because it's, right in Washington, D.C. on the, people would be lying dead all over the place, if they're poisonous berries. So I thought, well, I'll try them because I was vegetarian, and so I took some of these berries, and they were horrible. I just spit them out, and I had this horrible taste in my mouth. But somehow or other, then later on, this May Day thing, they're trying to close Washington, then they had food for these people. And they had separate two different things. One is for vegetarians. I was already a vegetarian. So then I got to eat there. We weren't too successful in stopping the Vietnam War. But I stayed for a little over a week without any money, and I saw it as God was protecting me. He took care of me. So I think anybody can, so I think everyone should go away. Hitchhiking. The point is, you have to, whatever situation you're in, you should be depending on Krishna. There's like the 6 signs of surrender, always depending on Krishna's mercy. Always depending on him. Have no outside interests other than the interests of the Lord. Anyway, you have to feel always dependent on Krishna. So he's going to take care of me. You really have to feel that he will take care of me. If I surrender to him, he will take care of me. I can see in my own life that he's taken care of me completely. I mean, most people, they have to work, they have to do so many things. I work, once in a while. Now I don't hardly ever work at all, but I used to just go out to work for a few hours, and that was it. I got enough money to maintain myself. So I never really had to work, It's nice. And Krishna took care of me. It is nice. It's like, well, I did spend 4 years, I was in the Navy, but I didn't really work there either. But he took care of me. I just wanted to I wanted to surrender to him. I wanted to do the right thing, and I had full faith he would take care of me, and he did. And he will with anyone. And even if, not even in Krishna context, if you're following any bona fide religion and you're surrendering to Krishna, he'll take care of you. I'm surrendering to God, because they may not know he's Krishna.
When Radhanath Swami, when he was hitchhiking, it took like 1 month to reach India.
Well, yeah, I only did the U.S., Canada and Mexico too. I gave him the East. Yeah, I spent 1 year, 1970 and 71. From 70 to 71. Spent the whole year. It was really good experience. I wouldn't recommend anybody doing it nowadays. I think there's a lot crazier people today than there was then. I did do it. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please put those away, thank you.